Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Tin Man's Court Channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor. Today, I'm reacting to my third and final Chillin' Scares video for today. And this was titled, YouTubers That Became Murderers. Now, I've seen a video similar to this on Mr. Nightmare's channel, but he was covering like well-known cases of YouTubers that went insane and caused harm to a bunch of people. Well, this is 4 cases of lesser-known YouTubers that became killers. So without further ado, I'm going to turn these lights off, move the camera up here for you guys, and let's get this reaction on the road and in the bag, shall we? Okay, here we go.
Suzanne Eaton was a 59-year-old American scientist who was working as a professor of molecular biology in Dresden, Germany.
Okay.
A big part of her job at this institute was to travel around the world and hold conferences on the latest developments in her field. In July of 2019, she traveled to the scenic Greek island of Crete for one of these conferences, not knowing that this was going to be her last, and that the person responsible for her end would be caught because of his videos on YouTube. The incident happened on July 2nd, when, after a conference, Suzanne spent time with her peers and played the public piano in the venue's lobby before saying her goodbyes and heading out to her hotel in the afternoon. Sadly, this was the last time anyone saw Suzanne alive. Her coworkers noticed her absence when she didn't show up for the second conference scheduled for 6 p.m. that evening. It wasn't like her to skip events out of the blue. Something wasn't right. A fact that became increasingly clear when over 24 hours passed without anyone hearing from her. So, on July 3rd, her colleagues called the police to check on her, hoping she was simply sick or something similar. However, when officers arrived at her hotel room, no one answered the door. They acquired a spare key from the hotel management and went inside, only to find the room completely empty and undisturbed. All of Suzanne's belongings were also still in the room. The only things missing were her running shoes and a set of exercise clothes. Those who knew her immediately understood what this meant. You see, in addition to her academic prowess and piano expertise, Suzanne was also an athlete at heart. She was a double black belt in Taekwondo, and despite her age, loved going on a run every day.
I'm glad that some of her colleagues realized that she won't showing up and known that she was never late to certain events. And if the police found out that she had some jogging clothes missing and a pair of running shoes as well disappeared, then, automatically I would assume, okay, she went on a jog, but where would she be at? And the fact that they said that she's an expert in Taekwondo, she would have handled an attacker if somebody tried to grab her well. Obviously, in this case, it seems like the attacker was way stronger than her. But let's just see what else Chillin' Scares found out about this woman, shall we?
Knowing this helped investigators narrow down what might have happened to her. Put simply, she likely went on a run soon after returning to her hotel on July 2nd, and something went wrong after that.
Yeah, that's
she
what I was
wasn't
thinking.
super familiar with the area, and to make matters worse, the weather was uncomfortably hot that afternoon. There was a strong possibility she collapsed from the heat or something else along those lines. After putting this together, the Crete police immediately dispatched a search and rescue team in the area surrounding her hotel and around popular running trails. Her family even traveled to Crete and put a €50,000 reward for anyone who could help find Suzanne. Unfortunately, Suzanne was nowhere to be found. It is until 5 days later, on July 8th, when 2 young men were exploring one of the abandoned World War II Nazi bunkers scattered across Crete. Around 200 meters in, one of them noticed a piece of burlap covering something on the ground. They picked it up from one end to see what was underneath, and what they found was the aftermath of one of the most horrific crimes in Crete's recent history. The burlap was covering the bloody remains of Suzanne Eaton. A later autopsy report discovered that Suzanne had several broken ribs, multiple fractures throughout her body, a missing ear, and much, much more. Whatever happened to her certainly was not an accident. The investigators began searching for clues, and fortunately it didn't take long for them to make their first major breakthrough: a set of car tire tracks leading up to the entrance of the bunker. Analyzing these tracks allowed investigators to find the car responsible for transporting Suzanne's remains to that bunker. It belonged to 27-year-old Giannis Paraskakis, a local sheep farmer. But when questioned, Giannis feigned ignorance and claimed that him driving through that area on that day was nothing more than a coincidence. He went as far as to say that he didn't even know about the existence of that bunker, a lie that would eventually lead to his arrest.
Uh-oh. You see what happens when you lie to officers? They'll find out the truth eventually and put you behind bars for falsifying your statement.
You see, Giannis had a dream to become a successful YouTuber. He started a channel with his own name in 2012 and began posting videos. However, if you go to his channel today, all you'll find are 3 videos of him performing an ancient Chinese martial art and meditation technique called Qigong. That's because a couple days before Suzanne's body was discovered, Giannis deleted every other video on his channel. And once authorities recovered some of these deleted videos, it became clear why. You see, most of these deleted videos involved Giannis exploring abandoned World War II bunkers, including the one where Suzanne's remains were discovered. This contradiction gave the authorities the go-ahead to formally arrest him on July 15. It also allowed them to investigate him further, and the evidence they discovered was overwhelming.
I knew it. He already filmed some content in tunnels like that before, and he deleted it just to say, like, he's never been into them tunnels before. All he had was like them Qui-Gon martial art techniques. Well, he really put himself in the hot sheets, did he, for deleting those videos.
As it turned out, the land where this bunker was located was owned by Giannis's family. Investigators also found traces of Suzanne's blood in his car's trunk. When confronted with this evidence, Giannis cracked and told the whole story. According to him, he saw Suzanne running down the road and something came over him. He hit her with his car twice before putting her in his car, driving to the bunker, and ending her life there. He later changed his story to where he was compelled to commit this crime by a demon. Unfortunately for him, the jury didn't buy this one bit and sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole in 2020. Now, this should have been the end of Giannis' story, but from what I've seen, there's more to his actions than just this one crime he was convicted of. The thing is, Giannis presented his vile act as a crime of opportunity, something he did completely out of nowhere. However, there's evidence to suggest that Giannis might be a full-blown serial killer. For instance, he was apparently detained by the police twice before, once for arson and once for animal cruelty, both of which are well-known early behaviors of serial killers. After his arrest, several other women also came forward, testifying that he had tried to run them over with his car as well in the past. So, Suzanne was more than likely not his first victim.
If police have been getting reports about this guy, I don't know why they have not arrested him then and put him away for a long time, because the death of Suzanne would not even happen. And then he said in a statement that he said a demon told him to do it. Bull crap. If he already had early signs of animal cruelty and arson, I mean, right then you could have got him and take him to some sort of psychiatric therapy counseling. And then he probably would have ended up being a changed man and not go berserk killing a bunch of women. I know his family's probably going to be upset that he went through all this and not go seek help for himself, because this is terrible.
However, the most solid evidence against Giannis is in one of the deleted videos he uploaded to YouTube. In it, we can see him showing some very human-looking bones scattered throughout the same bunker Suzanne was discovered in. These bones were never discovered by the authorities, suggesting they might have been removed by Giannis to hide evidence. But what makes this truly disturbing is what his friend says at one point in the same video. This roughly translates into, "Is this where you left that old guy?" Insinuating that Giannis had disposed of one of his previous victims in the same bunker before. And if that is the case, one can only wonder how many other people Giannis has killed over the years.
Who knows? But if he was exploring that tunnel, he should have edited out that part where his friend said, "Is this where you hid that old guy?" But then, of course, police would know that it was edited a little bit if he did not take the video down. But since he removed the bones and deleted videos off his channel that were related to Bunker, really messed him up. He wanted to be a famous YouTuber. That ain't going to happen no more, because I know once he's in jail, his channel's probably going to be deleted. And if he don't pray for forgiveness, I know for one thing he is not a person to be around with anymore. He's one sorry SOB that don't care about humanity, and they should already go ahead and give him the death sentence.
Simply Manic 6075 was a YouTube channel owned and operated by 24-year-old Samantha Wolford. She lived in the small community of Monticello, Texas, with her husband Ernest Lee Ibarra, aka Ernie, and their 5 children. She usually made videos about her day-to-day life and other random topics. Her story began in 2008 when she was at the lowest point of her life. She'd recently become the single mother of a pair of twins and had no love interest in her life. That's when she met Ernie at a local tattoo shop, and the two hit it off right from the get-go, eventually getting in a relationship and starting a family together. In one of her videos, Samantha described the day she met Ernie as the happiest day of her life. Together, they were blessed with 3 more children, including 1 more pair of twins. Raising 5 kids was a challenge, but Ernie made it work by taking a second job in pizza delivery. So, while they had endured tough times together, Samantha, Ernie, and their 5 children appeared to be the perfect loving family.
Yeah, everything sounds normal. I think I heard about this girl in Mr. Nightmare's video. I think she had like a depression issue, but I can't remember off the top of my head. So let's just continue what Chillin' Scares says about this girl.
However, while being a stay-at-home mother was all she could do at the time, Samantha still had a dream of becoming a famous actress one day.
I've always wanted to be an actress. I think it is so much fun. I've been extras in movies. I've had small parts in like short films. It is so much fun and it is so beautiful. It is one of the most amazing forms of art ever to be able to express yourself that way. I think it's amazing.
So, in October 2010, she created her YouTube channel and started posting videos, hoping to become a popular YouTuber and fulfill her dream on the internet instead. And things were going surprisingly okay in the beginning. Samantha would post new videos whenever she had something new to say. And while most of her videos struggled to get past 100 views at the time, the few viewers she had were enough to keep her going. But as time passed on, her passion for making videos turned into an obsession. She started spending more of her time on making videos than her family, putting even more pressure on an already stressed out Ernie. Around 2014, she also started accusing Ernie of hurting her in her videos, hinting at just how bad their relationship was going.
Okay, that's taking it way too far. I get it. You guys are struggling, like financially, but also being together. But you don't have to know crap on Ernie after he is stressed out for working 2 jobs just to support you and your kids. But I figure that once a YouTuber starts getting a bunch of views on a video and they just keep on going, they're in that mindset, okay, they gotta keep coming up with some creative content. But it don't mean framing your husband for hurting you. I mean, that's just messed up. So I figure she got some loose wiring on her head.
But then, after posting a seemingly random video in March of 2014, Samantha mysteriously vanished from the internet. Maybe she lost interest in YouTube or just wanted to focus on her family again. No one knew exactly why she quit so abruptly. Then, on the 20th of February 2015, viewers finally received the update they were waiting for. Unfortunately, it was far more tragic than anyone could have imagined. It started with the Texas police receiving a call from one of Samantha's aunts asking them to save her niece's life.
Cause County 911, what's your emergency? I have a home invasion. My niece is tied up. I am at the verge of untying my niece at this particular moment.
Okay, she's tied up.
She is tied up and gagged.
And gagged? Is that what
Yes,
you said?
ma'am.
Is there anybody else there?
So where are the kids? We have 5 small infants asleep.
Apparently, 3 masked men broke into their home in the middle of the night and attacked the couple while they were asleep. The intruders then tied Samantha in her bedroom and, after hitting him with a gun a few times, kidnapped Ernie. Samantha somehow managed to get her ties loose enough to call her aunt, who then contacted the police after arriving at Samantha's home herself. By the time officers arrived, Samantha's aunt had set her free from the restraints. The kids were, fortunately, safe as well. However, what made this whole situation strange was that the intruders didn't take anything else from their home besides Ernie. And from the people who knew him personally, Ernie wasn't the type of guy to make enemies with dangerous people. Put simply, investigators sensed something fishy with the whole situation.
It wasn't him. It was this SOB right here. I hate to spoil it right now, but apparently she had enough with him and hired 3 tough dudes to come in and act like they were going to gag her and kidnap him, but in the process, kill him. Because If there were just three random dudes breaking in the house to steal something, they would have steal something and not even bothered kidnapping the husband unless they wanted him for ransom. Man, this is just a hard pill to swallow that this lady basically killed the only good person that she ever knew in this world just because they were not spending enough time together, and it's her fault that she's focused more time on her YouTube channel than anything else. Now, I get it. There's a lot of people like that want to just keep building content. I get it. But here's advice for me. If you're raising a family and you always set like days for family game night, movie night, or one of your kids' sport games or something, focus on that. Worry about your YouTubing after all that is done. I mean, I've seen some YouTubers making videos at midnight, but it seems like this girl just completely lost it.
All that paled in comparison to the main objective, which was to save Ernie as soon as possible. Unfortunately, Samantha didn't know anything that could give investigators their first clue. With no other option, the officers took Samantha to the station for further questioning, hoping to extract any useful information they could from her. But what none of them expected was that Samantha would change up her story completely after entering the interrogation room. Where before she didn't know anything about the assailants, now she had the name of a potential suspect, John Rebel. As Samantha's story goes, she was talking to her friend about Ernie's supposed attacks on Samantha, when suddenly a man with the pseudonym John Rebel overheard their conversation and started talking about how a man shouldn't treat a woman that way and that he was going to handle the situation. Well, as it turned out, the name John Rebel actually belonged to someone, a man named Jonathan Sanford. The police found and arrested John not long after Samantha gave out his name, right alongside his two accomplices, Jose Ponce and Octavius Rhymes. Surprisingly, Jonathan put up little to no resistance and immediately confessed to kidnapping Ernie. He also confirmed the worst possible outcome, that by the time the police got involved, Ernie was already dead. The three took him to a secluded forest and executed him with one shot to the back of his head. However, even after learning all this, one question remained. Why? Why would three men who didn't even know Ernie kidnap him from his home like that? Every answer to this question pointed back to Samantha, who kept denying any involvement. Even if the investigators ignored her suddenly remembering the perpetrator's name, there were several other suspicious aspects to her story. Like, how was she able to untie herself enough to call her aunt? Why didn't any of her neighbors hear the break-in? And why were the kids all sleeping in the same room, when usually they're scattered throughout the house? It wasn't long before investigators uncovered undeniable evidence of her direct involvement. This included instruction messages she sent to Octavius when the officers were trying to call Ernie's phone, which he had on him. These read, "Kill his phone, shut that down, ditch phone, move." There was no doubt about it at this point. Samantha was in colluding with her husband's killers. And as the investigation went on, the real story came out as well. Samantha had apparently become addicted to the idea of becoming a famous YouTuber, and her neglect of the kids became a constant source of fighting between the couple. But instead of resolving the issue like a responsible adult, Samantha colluded with her friend's boyfriend to hatch a cartoonishly evil scheme to get rid of Ernie. They first wanted to plant hard drugs in his car and get him arrested, but later made the heartless decision that taking his life would be much easier. There's also a chance that Samantha went with the murder plan because it would have brought her more attention on YouTube. She was eventually sentenced to 149 years in prison for killing her own husband, leaving her 5 children completely orphaned in the process.
You see, this is why when you don't settle things face to face or don't go get no couples counseling, stuff like this would happen. One of the significant others would snap and hatch a plan to kill the other. I mean, that is just straight up bull. I can tell you, if you want to set your goal out to be a YouTuber, just do it. Focus your time on coming up with good content for viewers to enjoy, but also take the time off to spend time with your family and not go the route that she did. Completely ignore her children, completely have distrust and don't care issues with her husband, and now her children are orphaned because of her dumb mistake. And now she got to spend 149 years in prison for being so heartless like that. I'm sorry, but I would think that she would deserve the death penalty because everything was turning out fine until she became one heartless SOB. May her husband Ernie rest in peace, and I hope that not only her but her accomplices pray and ask for forgiveness. If not, they're sorry.
Diana Lovejoy was a successful technical writer living in the town of Carlsbad, California with her husband Greg Mulvihill. However, while her corporate job paid the bills, Diana's true passion was becoming a triathlon athlete and documenting her journey on video, resulting in her eventually starting her own fitness blog called Lovejoy Fitness and a YouTube channel by the name of HevvyDJ. She started this channel all the way back in 2008 and over the years used it to document various parts of her life. From meeting her parents after a long time to going scuba diving with her husband. At one point, she even tried to become a cooking show host of sorts.
Doesn't that smell nice?
Unfortunately, her channel never really took off, forcing her to eventually cut her losses and move on with her life in March of 2012. Or at least that's what it looked like from the outside. In reality, Diana's reason for abandoning her YouTube channel was kind of wholesome. You see, Diana and Greg had been trying for a baby for years by this point. Tragically, Diana had suffered 8 different miscarriages and was quickly losing hope. But then, in September of 2012, the two were blessed with a perfectly healthy baby boy, marking an end to their struggle.
Yeah, that's always a tough thing to go through in life. I haven't experienced it personally, but that could be strainful on a couple trying to have a kid, but then they have so many miscarriages. I'm just glad that they finally gave it one more shot and created this little angel right here. But let's just see what happens that made her turn evil.
However, what should have been a moment of celebration started a downward spiral of lies and betrayals, eventually culminating in an assassination attempt. Things started going downhill when just a few months after the birth of their son, Greg lost his job, leaving Diana as the sole breadwinner. The stress of the previous miscarriages, combined with the crushing weight of having to support a family in an extremely expensive city all on her own, spelled disaster for their marriage. It wasn't long before the two were constantly fighting with each other. Things escalated even further on July 9, 2014, when Greg returned home only to see a police officer waiting for him at the door. The officer explained that Greg wasn't allowed to enter his own home because, as it turned out, Diana had accused him of attacking both her and their son. What followed was a nearly 2-year-long divorce mediation, during which the investigators found no evidence supporting Diana's accusations, allowing Greg to get a 50-50 custody of their son. Diana was also ordered to pay $120,000 as a part of their divorce settlement in late 2015. But before the divorce could be finalized, Greg received a phone call from an anonymous number that changed everything. The voice on the other end claimed to be a private investigator Diana had hired recently. And according to this investigator, he already had solid proof of the attack claims Diana had made against Greg. But for some unknown reason, he wanted to help Greg win the case, so he claimed to have left the documents taped to a power pole located on a small hiking trail near Greg's home. Greg naturally found this whole thing pretty suspicious and decided to take one of his friends with him to the pole on the night of September 4th, 2016. Sadly, despite his suspicions, he failed to grasp the true intentions of the strangely helpful private detective.
Hello, this is 911.
Yeah, my friend has just been shot.
Do you know who shot him?
There's a guy lying down like a sniper.
A sniper? Did you see him at all?
Briefly, we saw the gun, and he shot at us like 6 or 7 times.
When Greg reached the pole, a sniper opened fire on him, shooting him clean through the chest. Fortunately, the bullet missed his heart by mere inches, giving him a second chance at life. By the time the police arrived, the shooter had already fled the crime scene. But a quick survey of the area allowed the investigators to uncover a pair of towels the shooter left behind. Running a DNA test on these towels led to a man named Weldon McDavid, Diana's shooting instructor. Weldon tried to deny any involvement at first, but the evidence against him was overwhelming.
The woman's upset that her husband lost his job. I get it. He can find another one. Good Lordy. You have to get stressed out thinking that you're the only breadwinner of the family. And then she tried to set up this whole scheme that he attacked her just so she can divorce him. And then she didn't probably like having like 50-50 custody split. So she got her shooting instructor to fake a whole transaction of a private detective being hired by her, and he was going to kill him. But thank God They said the bullet missed his heart. Whew. But I tell you, I feel like this woman is worse than the other one I just talked about. And it ain't no point in denying something when cops already got evidence tying you to the scene. So I know he's going to give in at that point.
As after a thorough search, investigators were able to find another set of the same towels at Diana's place as well. They had also received CCTV footage of Diana buying the burner phone Weldon later used to lure Greg into the secluded area. Most importantly, investigators also found the gun Weldon used on Greg, hidden in the rafters of his garage. By this point, it was clear that Diana was the one who wanted to get rid of Greg, likely to avoid paying the divorce settlement and keep full custody of her son. Diana and Weldon were arrested for the attempted assassination on Greg Mulvihill and tried for their crimes in November 2017. Both were found guilty, with Diana sentenced to 26 years to life and Weldon to a harsher 50 years to life. The only silver lining in this entire case is that Greg was able to make a full recovery and is now living with his son.
Which, thank God he did, because I hate to imagine his son crying knowing that his mom had his dad murdered. He would never forgive her after that. Justice was served either way. She messed up her life with her husband, and now these two can live their finest without her.
The Gunnar Runnar 87 channel on YouTube seems oddly wholesome at first glance. It's owned by an Icelandic boy named Gunnar Runnar Sigthorsson and contains a single 3.5-minute video of him confessing his feelings to the girl he loves. The title translates to English as My Confession to Hildur. In it, he says things like,
Hún án efa sérstakasta manneskja sem ég nokkuð tíma hitt. Ég verð svo ótrúlega glaður bara að vera nálægt henni. Það er ekki meira. Og þetta er ætlað þér þegar ég held sér bara ástfangin með þér.
However, this seemingly heartfelt love letter turned out to be the key to solving one of the most horrific crimes in recent Icelandic history. And it all led back to Gunnar and the troubled life he had as a child. You see, Gunnar didn't have a mother growing up, resulting in him getting extremely close with his father. However, on the night of September 20th, 1996, when Gunnar was just 9 years old, his father decided to end it all using a gun. What made this already messed up situation even worse was the fact that Gunnar was in the room with his father and witnessed everything. Unsurprisingly, this took a heavy toll on Gunnar's mental health. He withdrew from the world and refused to accept his father's death as reality. Everything seemed hopeless for Gunnar. That is until primary school, when he met a girl named Hildur and instantly became infatuated with her. He'd admired her throughout school and into adulthood, but never found the courage to make a move, fearing he'd lose his only close friend. However, things changed in 2009 when Hildur got engaged to a man named Hannes. This gave Gunnar the push to do something about his feelings. But given his shy personality, he still couldn't confront Hildur directly. So, in March of 2009, he created a YouTube channel and uploaded his confession on there. Hildur never reciprocated his feelings, but the two remained friends. Even Hannes, Hildur's now husband, didn't seem to mind Gunnar's company, something he likely regretted deeply just a year later. It all went down on the 14th of August 2010. Hildur was invited to a party that Gunnar was attending as well. But things got a bit out of hand, and Hildur ended up drinking too much and passing out. Given their closeness, the task of getting her home safely was handed to Gunnar. But instead of dropping her off at Hannes' house like he should have, Gunnar took her to his own home. By the time Hildur woke up, it was already morning. She was understandably furious with Gunnar and immediately called one of her friends to drive her home. But nothing could have prepared Hildur for the horrific scene she witnessed on the other side of her front door. Her husband Hannes was lying on the top of the staircase near their bedroom, submerged in a pool of his own blood. She ran outside and called the authorities. Sadly, it was already too late. Hannes had received over 20 stab wounds on his body, from his arms and legs to the back of his neck.
Jeez!
He was long dead by the time Hildur found him. Given his condition, his death was ruled a homicide, and investigators wasted no time in looking for the killer. And while they initially suspected one of his business rivals of committing this horrific crime, it didn't take long for investigators to find Gunnar's video confession to Hildur and bring him in for questioning. Gunnar denied knowing anything about it and was eventually let go due to lack of evidence. Fortunately, not all hope was lost, because not long after that, investigators found a bloody shoe print next to Hannes's bed. Looking deeper into this print revealed that it belonged to a pair of limited edition Adidas shoes. At the time, there were only 18 of these specific shoes in all of Iceland, and Gunnar just so happened to own one of these pairs. This was enough evidence to detain him once again. This also gave investigators the authority to do a thorough search of his belongings, resulting in them finding residue of Hannes's blood on his shoes, as well as in his car. Once presented with this evidence, Gunnar confessed to the murder. He also revealed that he'd been planning it for months, and even shoplifted the items he intended to use to avoid purchase records linking back to him. And while he didn't admit to it, Hildur also suspected him of spiking her drink that night, since she usually never passed out like that. After committing the crime, he also drove to a nearby pier and dumped items used in the crime into the sea to get rid of any evidence. It was a well-thought-out plan, since he was only caught because the garbage bag he used to hide his shoe prints tore open as he walked. As for his motive, it was just as everyone had expected, with him making it clear during the investigation, stating, "I loved Hildur. She was supposed to be with me. She was not supposed to be with him." Surprisingly, he was found not guilty during his first trial on March 1, 2011 by reason of insanity stemming from his messed up childhood. However, the prosecution argued that he was fully aware of his actions and escalated the case to the Supreme Court of Iceland. Gunnar was found guilty on this second trial and was sentenced to 16 years in prison. This was already lenient given the brutality of his crime, yet he ended up serving only half of that sentence as well. He was released under supervision in July 2019, and now works at a local warehouse.
Sorry I won't talk in that much through this story, but I just wanted to get my mind process on all the facts. You would think, okay, they got him. They got the shoe print that matches his Adidas shoe. And he said he ditched the stuff that he used to kill that man in the water. Bingo, you got your killer. But then they let him go because I could see the whole insanity type thing. But then they took it to the Supreme Court, and then, of course, they put him in jail for supposedly 16 years, but then they let him go for serving half time, and now he's got a job working at a warehouse, which some parts of me wants to forgive him because, of course, he witnessed his own dad self-deleting himself. So that can have some mental trauma on the brain, but you shouldn't take it that far to where you get lovesick over the one particular girl that is already married to somebody else. But all that guy had to do was wait for the right moment before she accepted the engagement ring from the other dude. I know he was nervous, but he could have wrote down a note or something and left it, and boom. She probably would have felt the same way towards him, or she probably would have told him, look, I appreciate how you thought towards her, but she's in love with somebody else. You know, boom, simple. He probably would have understood it, and all this would have not happened. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on post notifications for more chill and scarce content like this. This has been another successful installment of the Tin Man Score channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor. I say that's a wrap, and have a nice day, y'all.